Hello, buddy. This is Robert Hollis, my wife Carrie. I want to welcome you to Unlimited Wisdom's Daily Wisdoms. Was that the yeah, okay. Hi, Mary. Hi, Deborah. Scott McKinney, Charles, Sandy, Coach Bob, Brother Bill, Nanette, Melody, Corky, and my son Matthew, Ezra, and Hannah. And of course, the hostess with the mostest, Craig Jackman. So, one of the things I wanted to do in this one is I want to start shifting the way that I do the daily wisdoms and some of the stuff. And I know that some of you have heard this phrase where, there's a phrase called edutainment. And some people say that I'm just naturally at doing this, so I don't know if I've ever made you laugh or if I ever said anything stupid or any of that stuff. Because life to me is pretty simple. Hi, Lisa Marie. Deb. And so I really want to get in on that kind of aspects. And I know that Melody's on here, and of course my son Craig. There's been some people here that have actually seen me do characters. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about the story of this so you guys know where they come from. And so, of course, my mentor that I met 40 years ago, and for those of you that have seen me do any characters, write down your favorite character, or maybe your top three. And so what really does, we all have heard the phrase, if I my Maya Angela, Maya Angelou, if I said that correctly, right? But we'll forget what people tell us, and we'll also forget what people teach us, but we never forget how someone made us feel. And if you ever wanted to really find out what you thought my magic was or secret is, that's what I do. I know that people don't care what you know unless they know that you care. And so what a lot of people do is they think of the mechanics of building a following or being an influencer or building a large satisfied customer base or a large consultant base or affiliate base. And what people don't really get is if you don't understand that the importance of getting to people's feelings as fast and quick as you possibly can, then guess what? People not only forget you, but they also forget what you shared with them, right? So Corky, I forgot that Corky was a part of the old tribe. And, Corky put here, the farmer. And so one of the things that I want each and every one of you to know is that moving forward, I want to start incorporating some of these stories and also some of these characters into what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And so it's going to be pretty funny because if I ever gave you guys any thoughts or you seen any of this, what's really amazing is that hi Linda, hi Faith. I think I said Lisa Marie and Dustin. Great group of people on here. Thank you so much. Is that when you do a character or a story, how many of you have noticed that stories really, really grab you? So a lot of you may or may not have seen me, talking about the sowing and reaping, you know what I mean? Which is basically a parable that's out of the Bible. But it's so easy to imagine. And I love the phrase where someone put apple seeds. I think it was um, Bob. I don't remember. I'm sorry. But it's very, very interesting when we just look at the magic of who each and every person is. Once you find that place inside you where you can be like a kid again, and everything's fun and everything's lighthearted and nothing really, really, gets you messed up. When you can stay in that kind of energy, it is really amazing how you can attract people. And so I know a lot of people when they start saying, okay, well, this is what I would like to do because I need to earn extra money. There's a very large disconnect in our mind that we need to be serious. You know what I mean? We need to be serious. We need to know the facts and figures. We need to know all of this stuff because if we don't know this stuff, then in our mind, we're programmed that, you're not a business person. You know what I mean? But as I was telling you guys this, I had sort of a download. Has anybody ever watched a comedian? Okay, so what does that mean, that you're actually taking the time or the money, or today I guess you would call it your monthly subscription, and you're actually watching someone that's making you laugh? It's pretty interesting, isn't it? And if you think about it, they always have a tendency of talking about stuff that that again, just the best comedians talk about things that we all acknowledge that we've gone through or that we've been through. And so there's this phrase that always has been said to me that I thought that, I haven't shared a lot of this stuff for a long time. But one of the things is when someone says something to you, it could be anything. What a lot of people do is they try to get into a debate. Hi, Mike. Trish, I don't know if Trish is there, but one of the things that a lot of people don't get is that if you don't acknowledge their question, then basically you're not going to make them feel good. Did you guys catch what I just said? So someone even said something that might be as ignorant as, is this one of those things? Is this one of those pyramid things? The way that you react to that is going to change the way they feel. And if you make them feel like they're lesser than or they're stupid, then how many people think that you'll get a customer or get a consultant, or in our case, get a follower? No, you're not, right? So there's this thing that's called, I know how you feel. I've felt the same way, but this is what I found. So this was something that I got taught my first couple of months in the business, because when you're being serious as a business person and someone sort of says no, or I'm using a different product, or I'm in a different company, it's like the very first thing that we do is we take rejection personally. Am I the only one that does that? So when someone says no, you how do you feel? Oh, you're in another one of those things, right? So the whole concept of, I know how you feel, I felt the same way. And again, you don't want to lie about this, but this is what I've found. And so when someone reaches out to you and says, and I know Terry's had this up a couple of times, is that, even though we might have the most documented product, right? Is I was actually talking to Chris Robinson yesterday. And, I know this is going to sound weird, but I just want you guys to think about this. Is if you're having difficulty getting people to try the product or buy the product, is this 30-year-old company has had difficulty getting into the American market for 30 years. Do any of you want to guess why I think that it doesn't explode in the United States? Okay. So think about it a little bit. If you wanted to put an answer, you could. But this is what I think. This is just a hypothesis, an educated guess, right? But I think that Immunical is too documented. Because if it's so documented, and there's never been a more documented product, then how is it possible for you to stop selling? See, this builds confidence. So you hear about the patents, you hear about the 3,000 stories, you hear about the clinical studies, you hear about the gold studies, you hear about all this stuff, right? And immediately it puts you in a place where you want to make sure that the other person knows just how superior this product is to everything else they're taking. Mm-hmm. How many of you are following me right now? So now, you might not mean to do this, but what you're doing is you're giving too much information too fast, and now the person feels like you're selling them. See, a lot of people all the time, it's like, I made a post today, and the post was really simple. And my mentors tell me this all the time. People are more impressed with your enthusiasm, the height of your enthusiasm, than the depth of your knowledge. But we as human beings always believe that if we know more than somebody else and then we go out of our way to try to educate them, then what we don't realize is, and this is just really open for you guys. How many of you have ever talked to somebody and as they're talking to you, you feel this is maybe not what they're attending to do, or maybe they are attending to do it. But how many of you have ever talked to somebody and while you're talking to them, you feel like they're trying to make you feel dumb? Or you just flat out feel dumb. It's like they're saying all these things that you've never heard of, including, a few months ago when someone just said, hey, have you ever heard of glutathione? And I'm going like, what? And it's like, all of a sudden when you don't know, and then people start throwing more facts on you, more facts on you, more facts on you. It's like, I know a lot of you probably still don't maybe believe this. I do. I just believe that we live in a time and a place in the world right now where people don't want to learn anything. They just don't want to learn anything. So when you lean into that, hey, did you know about glutathione? Did you know that it deals with your immune system? Did you know that there was a product that's the highest protein? There's nothing on the planet that has more protein and than this product. You know what I mean? And how do you know that your way is better than my way? WHEY. Bob, you can steal that tagline. Your why, your way is not better than my way. But the whole concept behind this is, again, then I noticed as we're building it, that's when all of a sudden you're seeing Josh Wagel is going into, listen, we got to go back to a peak of interest video that talks about what a majority of the people on the planet want, and that's to make a little extra money. Right? And so the peak of interest for the $1 billion run not only is more on the we're making money side, but then the presentation is more on the money side. Right? And so if you really, really think of this, I really thought it was funny for those of you that have been around me forever, and I love you, you're my family, is when we first got involved in Immunotech as a way to be able to help people become healthy and also for people that need to generate extra income, is that I went, wow, I never ever thought that I would be a product person. I never thought I would lead with the product. But a lot of people here have been really, really doing a lot of posting and a lot of stuff on Immunical and on the other products. And I fortunately am above a large group of people, and I get to see what people's volumes are. So how many of you are really, really excited about your volume for February? Okay. But again, let's go back to the concept of what if you focus, like that's why I said I want to do edutainment. I think that the world right now needs to feel good. I think that everything that we do is I'm very proud of a lot of you, all of you, but I see Bill and Sandy and a lot of people, Lisa Marie, you guys are doing videos like almost every day. And I'm just saying, what if there was just a suggestion that your video actually was focused? Sandy's already there, but what if your videos just focused on doing something or saying something that just made people feel better? It wasn't about telling them they need to change. It's like, hey, listen, you're all right. You got this. You know what I mean? And so whether you were, doing something lighthearted or you were making fun of something or you were just giving somebody, because it's like I have a lot of followers, but there's one thing that I haven't changed since I started social media is I am 1000% in the habit of posting something that makes people feel good. Isn't that crazy? So I can change some other stuff, but still, the one post that usually comes out on a daily basis is something that makes people feel better if they read it than when they didn't. And so, how are you making people feel? So, welcome, iPhone. Hi, Jim. And so, when you tell stories, I know one of the things that really blew me away when Jay Shetty first hit the world, we're calling, he calls himself the urban monk, right? And how many people, when he was asked what he was doing, he said, I just wanted to pass on, Eastern wisdom to the Western country, the wisdom, right? And what was funny about Jay Shetty is when he first started doing videos and started doing stuff online, he was telling stories that we've all heard. Everyone, I mean, you hear the story and you're going like, I've heard that one. I've heard that one. I've heard that one. It doesn't make a difference. It's just like a song. If you hear a song, you don't have to say, well, I heard that back in the 80s. No, the song either makes you feel good or bad, doesn't it? And so why wouldn't a story do that? So I'm just making a suggestion to some of you that, you think of your favorite stories. The Melody is really, really good at this because Melody will consistently make me think of a story that I used to say in the past. So a story that I heard that all of a sudden when people hear that story, they all of a sudden go, oh my God, I've heard that before. Or maybe I like a joke, I heard it, but I've sort of forgot about it. But that little story really has a nice touch to it, and I know that a lot of you have heard this story, but, I just thought every time I tell people this story, they just get it. And I've done it many, many, many times, but it's all about, a guy, he's sort of lost. It's always the story where he's driving out in the middle of nowhere and he's lost, so this has got to go before GPS. And all of a sudden he pulls into a farmer's yard and he starts walking up to the porch where he's rocking on his chair. And he hears this dog just making this god awful, moan. He's like, oh, oh. So he gets all the way up there. And the first thing that he does, because it's so loud, he's like, what's wrong with your dog? He goes, nothing's wrong with my dog. How can I help you? He goes, well, I'm trying to find this highway or this piece of property. And he goes, well, and he started talking and the dog started doing this groaning again. And he's like, listen, sir, I know you're probably used to the noise, but there's definitely something wrong with your dog. Why is he making that noise, that god awful noise? And he said, well, if you notice, he's laying in the sun. He loves laying in the sun. But where he lays in that part of the sun, there's a nail that's sticking up in the floor. So the dog is actually laying on that nail. And all of a sudden the guy's going like, I don't understand. If it hurt him and it bothered him, why wouldn't he move? And the farmer said, well, it doesn't hurt that bad. And so how many of you guys can relate to people that that they're not going to move, they're not going to change, they're always going to complain, they're always going to come up with excuses, and you go, well, I don't understand why you won't do something different. That's like, well, it doesn't hurt that bad. And how many of you guys, can say sometimes that you feel you fit in that realm, right? It's like, and when I think of the dog laying in the sun, this is the first thing I think about. It's like if you really got to watch the dog, it probably doesn't lay in the sun when it first lays down because of the nail, right? And then all of a sudden the dog gets back up and goes, no, laying in the sun's better than not laying in the sun. It just, the nail's there, right? So if you think of this little story, one of the things that we used to always teach people is that remember that story, because sometimes if I was reaching out to Jim, for instance, and I was trying to get Jim to do something different because I knew it would be better for him. You know what I mean? That if he did this, this, and this, that it would change his life, right? And so if all of a sudden I said, well, Jim, we talked about doing this, how many days in a row did you read the God Memorandum? And he's going, listen, I started reading that book, and then, all of a sudden there was some things that came up and I forgot about it, and I just haven't got back to it. And I go, but you told me that you really wanted things to change in your life. And he goes, I do. Instead of beating up Jim, wouldn't it be cool? Hey, Jim, I was talking to the guy that taught me this business, and he told me this story. Can I share it with you? Yeah, sure. And you tell that story. You get good at telling that story. Well, as you told Jim that story, do you think that he would giggle? Do you think that he would get something out of it? Of course he would. So now if he's a good friend, which Jim is to Hollis family, is like, I would then every once in a while, I'd reach out to Jim and go, how's everything going? And he goes, same crap, different day. And I can just go, ooh, ooh. And he starts laughing. He's going, I know. But you see what I mean? So the way that you can constantly connect with people is that if I call Jim and he sees me on caller ID, you want to be the person that people will say, hey, how many people remember three-way calling? Or not? No, it's called call waiting. Call waiting, right? You know what call waiting is for me? I call it a popularity contest. So I want to be the person that when you're talking to somebody else and I call you and you see that I'm calling you, you put the other person on frickin' hold. So you always want to come from a mindset that, is this person happy to hear from me? Do I make them feel better? How about my audience on Facebook? Do they like hearing from me? When I leave people birthday messages, do they like hearing from me? So if you can frame it that everything that you're coming from is on how you can leave the person feeling better after you got done talking to them or messaging them than before you talked to them. Does that make sense? And a lot of people won't be able to do that unless they're aware of it. And so just really, really watch. One of the things that my mentor told me to do, and I did everything that he told me to do. But we had these really large, it was funny how big they were back then, but they were actually tape recorders where you could tape record conversations. And my mentor told me, listen, when you're doing conversations with people, guess what? Record it. And then go back and listen to what you say to people, and then ask yourself, if I was on the other end of that conversation, would I want to do business with this person? And that goes back to one that I just love, where it's like, do you think that you could sponsor yourself? Do you think that you could enroll yourself? Why are you laughing, Coach Bob? It's like, but when you really think about what people are looking for and what they're needing right now, are you doing for them what you wish somebody did for you? Or are you just duplicating? Terry and I were talking, and what really blows my mind is that, like I talked a little bit yesterday. Now, Bob, I love
Don't
you.
change who you are.
Don't change who you are, and stop saying sorry. But when you really, really think, when people are not doing what they think they should be doing, having unrealistic expectations. I told myself I'd be silver by the end of February. I would requalify for silver. I wanted to be gold by silver. I mean, some of you probably, it could be just as simple as a goal, is that if someone reached out to you right now and said, what are you doing? And you could lead with, I'm doing this side gig, or I'm doing this entrepreneurial thing online, and I'm in profit every month. How many of you guys can't wait to say that you're in profit? Right? So it's easy to see what you spend per month, and are you making more than that? See, that's the first goal, is just to say, hey, I've been with this company for a few months. I'm already in profit. In fact, I was in profit for the month of February. And there might be little tiny single deals that you guys can do that, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get there? And then you focus on that. And I just know that if you're constantly making people feel good, going back to that philosophy again, I know how you feel. I felt the same way. And this is what I found. So I really used that at the beginning because, being from Montana and then moving to California, a lot of people had been approached with business opportunities in California. You know what I mean? People moved there to change their lives, so they're pretty open-minded. So when people said to me, is it one of those companies? And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's not one of those companies where, you have to get people to pay to get in, and then they have to do the same thing, and you're all making money. See, me, I was always defensive no matter what they said. The only thing that I wasn't defensive is I'm in. They said I'm in, I'm okay. But if they wanted to think about it or do anything else, I got in this rejection place because it didn't feel good. I just wanted people to say yes because I didn't want to feel like I was doing something wrong or that I was stupid or, this is below me. People that, don't have a proper education do this kind of stuff. And so it was very difficult for me to uh, tell people I knew how they felt because I knew nothing about being an entrepreneur. I knew nothing about network marketing. You see what I mean? So it was like they go, well, it's at one of these. And then I'd go, well, are you worried about it being illegal? Because if it was something that was illegal, I know that I wouldn't feel good about being involved. And they go, yeah, I guess that, because most people, when they ask questions, do you know that they're asking questions just to ask questions? It's really not what the problem is. We're just programmed to ask questions. There's always a deeper thing that it is. Because if you notice, if you keep helping with people with what they, how I know how you feel, I felt the same way. But then when I talked to some people that were experts, they told me the way it was. So one of it was sales, right? So the person, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. See, this one I could get really good. And I go, listen, I totally understand how you feel. And they go, really? And you usually have to, again, be a good storyteller. So it's like, yeah, I had this personal story that you guys have all heard where, there was a squeal in a tire. And so when I brought it in the shop, put it on the hoist and pulled the tire off, there was a rock caught in the caliper, the brake caliper. So once I took the tire off and the rock fell, I put the tire back on, there was no more noise. So that's the end of the job. So I go back to the service writer and I just said, listen, there was just a rock stuck in the caliper. And he goes, okay. And then he comes back to me and he says, you need to put front brakes on it. And I'm like, it doesn't need front brakes. You see what I mean? So that's why I didn't like salespeople, because people sell people stuff they can't afford. And then they do all this manipulation stuff to try to get people to buy stuff, right? And so they go, oh, wow. And I go, so I felt the same way. But then what I found is I said to the person that trained me is I go, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not interested in selling people stuff. And he's going, listen, we don't sell people stuff. What we do, we share with them something that will make their lives better. So, Robert, would you like helping people make their lives better? Like Zig Ziglar said, if you want what you want in life, help other people get what they want in life. And if you help them get it. And then my mentor just said one other thing. He said, do you know everyone that's financially successful figured out a product or a service that they could offer others? I was like, what? He goes, well, you're a mechanic. Why does that dealership make money? Well, because they sell and fix cars. Is that a service for people? I worked in the service department. You see what I mean? So always try to figure out how to be able to help someone get to the next thought, because if you can help them get to 2 or 3 questions or objections, you'll find out that really what it is I don't want to ask my wife for any money. You see what I mean? So they'll say, this looks like one of those. Or, I'm not a salesperson, but in reality, what it was is I've gotten involved in opportunities in the past and my spouse supported me, but then I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And so it cost us money and they're not very happy. Well, great. That's when I shared yesterday as I went, well, listen, maybe we could go at this a little different, Jim. What if we could take the time to make sure that you're properly trained and knew what to do and got results before you got in? Do you guys see how that works virtually every time? Because people like to learn how to be successful. Now, will they show up? Will they stay plugged in? That's a whole nother story. Right? And so, but I just thought that that's what I would share with you guys. I'm going to step in, and I would like some of you that love a certain character that I do. What I'm going to do is, instead of waiting to wait, that's what everybody does in everything. I'm just going to do my best to do a character on certain days and let you guys know in advance when it is. And I'm just going to pretend. I'm just going to pretend that I'm in front of a large group of people. I can get creative enough to dress up and do some characters, and we'll just start there. I think that will be really, really fun. And for those of you that know me from the past, if there's something that you really love that I've done, I just want Unlimited Wisdom to be all about making people feel better and making people understand through stories and edutainment, entertaining them while we're educating them. And I just want to be very uniquely different from everything else out there. You know what I mean? I can be a talking head. Sometimes I get too serious, I'm sure, but most of the time I'm pretty lighthearted because that's the way I am in life. So I love and appreciate you guys. You have anything to say? What was your favorite character?
I'd have to think about it.
I think that you're just a character.
Totally.
All right. Love you guys. So thank you, Charles, Linda, Faith, Lisa Marie, Dustin, Deborah, Scott. We had 2 Scotts on here. Jim, Mike, Nanette, Deb, 2 Debs, Michael, Angela, Mary, Sandy, Coach Bob, Brother Bill, Melody, Corky, and Matt, Hannah, Ezra, and of course the hostess with the mostest, Craig Jackman.